All right, welcome to Waking the Kraken. I'm Wes Potts.
And I'm Alex Keeneman.
And looks like we're going to do it with Waking News.
Waking News.
All right.
So, Drake's In My Feelings is now number one for the 25th week this year.
Is that the one that everyone's like dancing to outside their car and stuff?
Yeah.
Like,
but it's getting close to Usher's record from 2004 of 28 weeks at number one.
With
which
Yeah?
Is, I think.
Yeah. That one was forever. I remember that.
Yeah, and that's the most weeks a song has been number one in the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Guinness just opened up their first plant in the United States in over 60 years.
Nice.
It's in Maryland.
That's crazy.
I couldn't really find why they had one for a while, but then I think maybe there just wasn't enough room for Guinness. I know that what is it? Mad Men even discussed imported beers around that particular time and era, talking about how Heineken was really hard to get into the United States. They almost had to make it look like a luxury beer, even though it's just a standard light beer.
Yeah, right.
So, but they're back in
That's
America
interesting.
after 60 years.
Does that mean we're going to get all of the interesting Guinness beers that we don't normally get?
I'm not actually sure on that. I don't know if it's just expanding the market for what Americans like to get, which is just their typical draft ale, or if it's they're going to open it up for all the other things.
Interesting. So there was an investigation into the Catholic Church this past year that revealed over 1,000 victims of about 300 different priests in the United States with child molestation.
I saw something about this today on the BBC with the Pope saying something.
Yeah, and Pope Francis actually wrote a letter to all of the members of the Catholic Church. So that's about 1.2 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
And he said, basically, he condemns the atrocities of child sex abuse and clerical cover-ups and calls for the culture of death to end in the church. And he is going to work really hard to make sure that this is something that ends now.
Nice.
And he feels like it's been too long since somebody's actually really... he says he doesn't understand why it hasn't been fixed sooner.
Right.
And so he's just going to do it now.
My one is on Meet the Press this week. Obviously, this is I'm very good at doing these Trump posts and stuff like that. It seems to be every week I have something about Trump, but he's just so interesting because Stupidgate is happening, I guarantee you.
Okay, tell me about this.
So, Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York City, is the president's lawyer now.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this.
So he went on Meet the Press this week, and they were talking about it because the head of Meet the Press was just the truth is truth. And they were talking about should Donald Trump testify in the Russian hearing. And Giuliani goes, the truth isn't true, which sounds like an oxymoron in itself. It's with that alternative fact kind of thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, no kidding.
But the more terrifying thing about the Meet the Press thing, I mean, that's the thing that's blowing up all online is the truth isn't true kind of thing and stuff. And how him testifying against himself will only give himself, further incriminate himself. The one thing that I was the most scared of came later in that actual part, where he actually talks about the meeting in Trump Tower with the Russians.
Yeah.
And he basically states that the only reason that they were where they were there is because they were trying to dig up dirt on Hillary, which means a foreign entity was trying to help manipulate an election.
Right.
Which makes me the most terrified is that the lawyer, instead of keeping that in his pocket, because that's what you can do as a lawyer, just flat out said it on TV, and you go, when is the White House going to not let Rudy Giuliani testify anymore on TV?
I mean, that's true. I mean, also doesn't that kind of mean that Donald Trump's son is now a perjurer?
Right, yeah, it should be. That would be the case if they can put it into evidence, but I don't know if you can put it into evidence just because your lawyer says it on TV.
That's true.
So
that's really interesting. Man, the world we live in is so strange.
So weird.
Man, that
I really need to stop getting Trump news, but that's the only thing that ever keeps coming up.
I actually kind of combined two news points into one on accident. So,
okay.
Yeah. So you got one? Do you have another one?
Yeah, I've got one more.
Yeah.
This one is a fun one.
Okay.
So the old action figure company Mego.
Mego?
Yeah, Mego.
Okay.
They were made popular in the 60s and 70s by making Star Trek toys, and then later in the 80s, they started making those classic horror film toys.
Oh,
like
okay.
Jason and
Right.
Freddy Krueger and everything like that. They're actually being resurrected from the dead. They just signed a deal exclusively with Target to re-release those classic horror film models and stuff
That's
like that.
That's amazing.
And I saw a bunch of them. They got a bunch of really cool ones. They've got The Thing. They've got Candyman in it now. They've got the one villain in Army of Darkness. Like, he's got an action figure
Hell
that's
yeah,
coming out and
dude.
stuff like that. They've got The Fly has one.
That's
oh
cool.
man, I'm so excited. I saw a bunch of them last night, like pictures of them.
Are they going to be like G.I. Joe style or Masters of the Universe
No,
style?
they're like actual like model, like Hollywood model-esque kind of style and stuff.
Well, I meant like, are they like the like normal human size, or are they like the like overdone kind of Hulk
From what I
looking?
could tell, they were about the normal human size. Like,
Okay.
they look like they're characters.
Oh, okay.
They're not like
Okay.
Funkos or anything like that. They actually
Interesting.
look like, you know, like you were just to have a model of them. and
Even
stuff.
better. That's
I know,
way more
it's so
exciting.
exciting.
For a second, I thought you were talking about that they were going to bring back like, because they used to do the Masters of the Universe toys, and they know how they all are like
Just
muscly and
bulky,
gigantic.
like, yeah, muscle
Like,
dudes.
they used to do the different horror characters in that style,
Yeah.
and I thought you were meaning that they were bringing those.
No,
back,
that's
but-
another company. That's what is it? It's National Entertainment Movie Association, or NEMA, I think,
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
you're right.
They do those ones, and
You're
those
right.
ones are still being made today.
Okay.
But Mego is actually a company. They're coming back also with the Star Trek,
Oh, okay.
like
To make a Star
action
Trek
figures
action
as well
figure?
for. Yeah, because Target's all about Star Trek. I've noticed that. Like, everywhere else is like really big on this whole like Star Wars vibe.
Yeah.
But you can find like Star Trek Risk and like Star Trek Monopoly and stuff
Amazing.
at Target exclusively.
That's awesome.
So it's really cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah, so that's something that I learned in this week. And in fact, actually, before I read about that, the guy who did all the photos for What's Haunting Wes and Nate, Trent, told me about it.
No,
'Cause he was
heck
stoked.
That, I mean, I don't doubt it, dude. He's a collector.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Right. So, what's been new this week?
Honestly, for me, like, I don't know if I've really had anything that new this week. I did a little bit of like more wood burning.
Nice.
I've been wood burning something for Chloe because obviously, if you looked at Facebook today, it's our alleged anniversary. Even though we celebrate our anniversary on the 4th, I
Yeah.
guess this was the day that Facebook told us that we decided to actually
Right.
make it official.
Right.
So I'm making something for it. I had it planned beforehand and stuff, so I've
Yeah.
been making something like that. But I don't want to
Excellent.
release that because she might be watching this.
This is true.
So, or someone else will tell her. So,
Wonderful.
other than that, I did some. Me and Chloe did some photography. We tried a bunch of different breweries this week. Like, that was the thing that we did this week. Was we decided to go around town trying a bunch of different breweries.
Okay.
And seeing what breweries we liked, what breweries we didn't, and actually every one of them turned out to be pretty good because they're all microbreweries.
Yeah.
But one of them had really good like barbecue, and I'll tell you about that off the show.
Wonderful.
So-
Man, see, we live in such a cool beer culture right now where, like, it's like a weird beer renaissance where, like, it's like everybody wants a unique, fun, original idea for a beer, or just like a really good version that's slightly different than what you normally see on a shelf.
Sure.
And like I really am into like restaurants that have like breweries that only serve beers that they brew there, and they don't even sell them otherwise. They just sell them on
it's just
tap.
like in-house, like kind of stuff.
Like I'm really into that right now myself because I love beer. I think it's amazing. Like it's hard for me to find a beer that I don't like.
Right.
In all honesty.
I've been really into sours recently, so any place that can give me a sour of any particular fruit variety. Cherries are really popular, but I had one that had an orange sour on it the other day, and that was really cool.
That's amazing.
Or a pomegranate. Those,
I do
those are
imagine
always
that'd
good.
be freaking good.
So,
So Kaylee and I went and did cake testing today.
yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, we were testing our wedding cake, and so we're getting this 3-tiered cake, right? And it's gonna be a white cake with strawberry filling.
Nice.
It's gonna be a chocolate cake,
With strawberry filling.
no, just
it's
just a
they're all
chocolate
strawberry
cake.
filled.
and then it's a lemon cake with blueberry filling.
Oh,
on
that's
top.
really cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm not a cake person, but lemon and blueberry is a classic combination to me now, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, that does sound really good.
delicious. I'm gonna have a Skittles cake for my wedding.
Skittles flavored cake.
Skittles flavored cake. I mean, if you eat a bunch of Skittles, it basically tastes like lemon and blueberry.
I mean, if you have to eat a bunch of Skittles,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you might as well just eat cake.
which, by the way, have you heard about this bullshit? They've switched the green. The green Skittle is not lime anymore.
Yeah, it's green apple. Yeah, I
That's
saw.
garbage.
What was that? That was a. I noticed that I went and hung out with Sam, who's been on the show and stuff the
Yeah.
other day, and he had a bunch of Skittles, and I was like, "This green doesn't taste right," and it just infuriated me that.
Yeah.
Because I love green apple things, but I
Yeah.
want to be aware of green apple things. I feel like they brought the green apple flavor when they released the sour Skittles, and then they discontinued the sour Skittles like morons.
Yeah,
And then they had to go throw that green apple somewhere else.
Dude, I always fall in love with the freaking tropical Skittles. The baby blue package.
I really like the wild berry ones.
Oh, those are pretty good,
were really
too.
good because they had the raspberry one, and that one was really
the
awesome.
purple.
Yeah.
The purple pack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Candy. So I also saw there's an article that I saw this week that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
It's on the website intellectualtakeout.org.
Okay.
And it's called The Tragic Decline of Music Literacy and Quality.
Okay.
And it's by John Hinchin. Now, my first problem with this article is that it's called The Tragic Decline of Music and Quality.
Right.
Music literacy and quality. My second problem with it is that John Hinchin is like a financial service agent. Like, he has no background in music, and he's publishing an article about how music is getting worse. And so, like, I see a lot of articles like this, and so, like, this is just kind of something I wanted to bring up because I'm really passionate about it.
Sure, yeah.
Basically, he says what everybody says, that pop music is getting simpler, the chord progressions are having less chords, melodies are becoming, they have less notes, they go to fewer places, lyrics are becoming less intelligent.
Right.
And, like, all of this stuff, and that just doesn't seem right to me. I feel like keep
going. I'm just kind of collecting my thoughts while you're talking.
Yeah, and what really bugs me about it is he only lists pop artists that are on, like, #1 Billboard radio.
Like top 40s.
Yeah. And he only lists those as music of today. Like, that's the only music he lists. And all of the studies that he goes back to, like, use as studies of music are studies that were done based off of what was at the top of the Billboard at the time.
Sure.
And so he basically was looking at a study about how pop music is changing and decided that that was all music and that pop music was the reason that music literacy was going down in schools.
Right.
And that really upset me because music is more amazing today than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And we've got more, like, different ways of making cool freaking music than we ever have. And we have access to more variety of music than has ever been.
Right.
And there's more people who care about way more types of music than have ever done.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just feel so unfounded. And it's like, I just get really tired of hearing it, that music is getting worse.
I mean, in my opinion, like, I can see his point where he's saying this because he's only looking at the top 40 chart.
Right.
And I've talked to many people.
Yeah.
Because I work at a place where there's a bunch of people that come in and out. They're always young.
Yeah.
There is a very large category of people who only think that that's the only music being made right now and everything else is shit, because if it wasn't shit, it would be on the top 40.
Right.
But I think the problem that I have come into conflict with is it's not that music is getting shittier. It's that places like iHeartRadio and stuff like that have a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
And they'll just pump money at radio stations who will just fall to their will. Like, for the longest time in the area that we lived at and stuff like that, we didn't even have an indie rock station.
That's true.
We just got one like a couple years ago from one of the colleges.
Yeah.
We don't really have much in way of, like, different kind of styles of rock. You get the like butt rock alternative station.
Yeah.
And that's all that they pump out.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's really the deal is the problem feasibly is you have this dichotomy of culture, I feel like, right now, where the internet provides everything that you could ever listen to.
Yeah.
Everyone puts their stuff up online anymore. It's almost rare to not have someone, if they're producing music, not put it up online anymore. The other problem, though, is that radio itself in the car is where most people listen to their radio.
Yeah.
It's also dying.
Yeah.
Because most people have, tablets, or they have iPhones, or they have Androids,
Bluetooth.
and they have LET, they have Wi-Fi. They just listen to things in their car or at home off of, like, Spotify, Pandora, Google Music, and stuff like that. And so in that example, we have started to see this kind of uprising of different musics making it onto the charts, but they don't really make it too far on the charts
No,
either.
they really don't.
And I think that's really where, like, if you're going to look at this particular area, if you're going to look at, like, music that's made post millennia, you have to look at what's trending online.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just look at iHeartRadio is going to be the Billboard Top 100 is going to be what's the happening in music. I feel like in the 70s and stuff like that, in the 60s, that was what was happening in music.
Yeah.
There was a lot of music being produced outside of that, but if you wanted to hear it, the radio stations played more than just top 40s all the time.
That's
you
true.
hear a big dichotomy of that. You see it all the time in all these documentaries and movies and stuff like that. But now we don't. We don't get that. So if your phone is dead and stuff like that, you're turning on the radio, and about 7 radio stations are going to play the same songs all the time. In fact, you might get them in sequential order of, man, I really hate this song, I'm going to change it to the next station. listen to a song, and then that song comes in, and you just keep flip-flopping through 7 different stations.
Yeah, and that song right now is "In My Feelings" by Drake. Yeah, right. Yeah, and what really bums me out about it is like using a phrase like "the lyrical intelligence of pop music has gone down" is like bananas stupid to me.
Right.
Like, just because the lyrics are not focusing on telling a story anymore all the time doesn't necessarily mean that their intelligence has gone down.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of pop music today is like really smartly written to be able to kind of like morph into a super relatable thing that has a very ambiguous meaning based on who's listening to it.
Sure, yeah.
And so in my mind, that's actually a more intelligent use of less words to make a song more meaningful by saying less. Just because you're not telling a story doesn't mean that that's the only way to be creative with songwriting, in my opinion. And like, trap music was never about lyrics to begin with.
No, it's about things you listen to at a strip club.
Yeah, it's about a fucking good beat that makes you feel sexy, and then like you got some words that are fun to yell out when you're at the club or something.
I think the thing is also, you don't even need music. I mean, I can say one word to our fans, and a lot of them will probably know it, and it's just sandstorm.
Oh, right.
And everyone knows that almost and stuff like that. It's just like yeah, and that's it. Like, everyone knows, just say sandstorm.
Yep.
You could also say Darude.
Yeah, right.
But like, everyone knows that because there's no lyrics. It's just something that everyone's heard all the time.
Yeah, right. And that song actually kind of leads me right into the next point that the article brings up. Is it says like pitch and tonal arrangement has also fallen.
Yeah.
And like, so basically, like, the variety of pitches that we use in a song and the variety of chords we use in a song are less now. And that is also paired with how he uses a study that he quotes that says that tone color and timbre peaked in variety in the mid-'60s.
Right.
And so when you're talking about tone color, timbre, pitch variety, and harmonic variety, I mean, yeah, harmonic variety and pitch variety may have gone down a little bit.
Right.
But timbral color and like, or tonal color and timbre, to me, like in the 60s, there's no way they could have even gotten to their like most varied peak, you know?
Right.
Because like we weren't even able to freaking use subwoofers in with records, you know? Like we couldn't use sub bass range with records. So we naturally had to we had to adjust the sound quality to fit our technology. And now we have a broader spectrum of audio that can be pumped out of nicer speakers that can handle more extreme ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And you get a more colorful, more vibrant, full experience that rattles your chest, but you can still hear everything, you know?
Yeah.
Which wasn't possible before. And so, like, to say that, like, tonal color and timbre and tone color, like, peaked in the 60s, which was almost 25 years before cassette tapes.
Right.
Whenever we finally made the leap from, you know, like, records... Which
to 8-track.
To 8-track and cassette tape.
Cassette tape.
Yeah.
To CD. To digital.
To where we're at now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I have a lot of friends on social media and different places, and a lot of them have been playing music for a lot of their life. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them will post stuff like this, and it's just garbage to me. Like, all they're doing is belittling what the generation below them is trying to do creatively because they don't understand it.
Well, I also think that, like, what is it? I think, was it South Park that had the one thing that after a certain age, everything just sounds like shit to you?
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those
totally
things
true.
where, like, how old is the guy that wrote this piece? Like, is he roughly, like, probably in his 40s or 50s or something like that?
He's got completely a white head of hair.
Okay, so yeah, he's
Probably,
older, so
yeah.
he's looking at it as, like, he's probably in the same kind of field as my parents are and stuff like that, where if you can't play the instrument and it's just done on a computer and stuff like that, it's not being a musician, because it took you no skill to learn it. You didn't practice, and although these people that are making beats, these people that are making synthesizer music and stuff like that, they're very elaborate, and they just don't have to, like, sit in front of a piano for hours and hours and hours playing other people's music. They can play something that they like and then mess with things and stuff like that and make something that's very good.
Yeah, like, that's actually kind of interesting, because one of the other points that he used in the freaking article was that he's talking about how piano sales have been declining, and the number of piano stores in the U.S. is lower than it's ever been.
But have synthesizers been rising? That's the other thing.
Yeah, and see, that's my thing. Is like, well, that's just a really poor example. Like, that's saying, oh yeah, this really big, awkward, and very expensive instrument that's super old-fashioned.
Yeah.
That, like, I can buy something that takes up, like, way less room for, like, way less the price, that does the exact same function.
And I can pick it up and put it in a closet.
Yeah. Like, that's just somebody completely ignoring that like technology today in music is just there's just stuff that's more popular than an upright piano or a grand piano.
Right. And it's like it looks sophisticated and nice if you have a piano in your house and stuff like that. That's all well and good. But I mean, even if you look at like I have friends whose parents are jazz musicians.
Yeah.
And granted, at their house they have a stand-up piano that his dad plays at and stuff like that. But most of the time, his dad winds up playing on a synthesizer because he has clean piano. He has a bunch of other different kinds of pianos and stuff like that. He can switch whatever different era he wants of jazz on his synthesizer instead of having to like find a piano everywhere he goes and stuff like that, everywhere they play. So they have the ability to open up more of a horizon of playing, which opens up a lot more like opportunities to, get paid, make a living off of doing this.
Yeah. I mean, and like, it makes more sense to have a more utility, like an instrument with more utility to it than it does to buy one that has strictly one really good tone quality.
Right.
Which is what you get when you buy a nice piano. You're getting a really big instrument that sounds really good and it sounds like a piano.
Yeah.
But it only sounds like that piano and it takes up a lot of freaking room.
And you constantly have to get it reworked on and stuff like that and retuned.
Yeah, and like I personally like would much rather hear somebody play piano on a concert grand piano,
Sure.
Because it sounds so much better.
Yeah, and depending on the music style, I would like to listen to that too.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I don't want to hear a concert grand piano playing in the middle of an R&B track. That makes no sense. It takes up too much tonal space, and like, it's too big of an instrument. It has too much personality. But I just think it's funny how much people are afraid of how art changes over the years.
Sure.
And it was just particularly poignant this week where people were trying to rag on my favorite thing in the whole world, music, about it getting worse, when really they just don't understand what they're talking about.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with Ben the other day. If we look at the scope of decades, clearly there's going to be variations, but there's generally, like when they say the 1980s or the 1960s and stuff like that, you're going to think of certain sounds and tropes that were played in that.
Yeah.
What do you think in 20 years people are going to look back at this decade and go, okay, that's something that they used back then that we don't use anymore? Kind of like in the 80s where they had that like highly synthesized kind of style and everything like that, and people do it today still, but like it's kind of one of those homages to the 80s, like where people listen to it and they go, oh, that sounds really 80s and stuff. So what I'm curious about is, what do you, as someone who spectates a lot of music and obviously you listen to a lot of pop, we talked about it a lot at your party and stuff that you had too, what do you think is going to be the thing that will be the typical sound? Like, if you had to name one particular instrument or like, texture or something like that, that would be the sound of this decade.
The sound of this decade is going to be textural variety, specifically.
Okay.
Like, and that's really hard to pinpoint to a specific sound, because this is the first decade where we have had an infinite variety of sounds at our fingertips to make music with.
Okay.
And it's also kind of the first decades that like we've really allowed like electronic DJs and single producers who work on entire tracks themselves and have a guest singer come in, and the singer really is just a voice.
Yeah.
And like this person's got a lot of control over what's going on, and like that's the new kind of, to me, like it sounds weird to say this, but the equivalent of what somebody like Mozart or Beethoven or Bach of back then, people that we called like the master composers who could do masterpieces, like that's freaking unfortunately people like Marshmello, Deadmau5, Justice, Daft Punk. These are people who are completely innovating the way we can make music in a totally different way.
Right.
In the 80s, it was still experimental and still growing up.
Yeah. And
that's kind of when it all started. And now we're at a point where electronic dance music is the foundation of like almost all of our pop, and also if you look at it, electronic dance music and hip hop kind of both came about at the same time.
Sure, yeah.
And now they are both the most prevalent musical like genres in pop music.
Yeah.
And it's because they both happened in the 80s, and that we've had enough time to grow them into something intriguing now.
Yeah.
And the reason I say textural variety is so important is because if you look at like all of the 21st century so far, or the 20th century so far, sorry, the 1900s, we come right out of the Romantic period in the 1800s, with which its whole thing was dissonance and bringing in basically music that isn't just pretty.
Yeah.
You know, like all of a sudden ugly music became a thing.
Right. My thing was going to be auto-tuned voice.
Yes.
Not like because I know that auto-tuning has been going on for a long time, but I'm talking about like the hyper like pitches and like lows and highs kind of thing where someone's going to listen to that and be like, we don't do that anymore. We've found out a way to use it a little bit different and stuff like that, but it's going to be a very strictly, because I mean, we still use synthesizers. People in the 80s use synthesizers, but it's going to be one of those things where it's like, this is a very specific, like, this time frame style. Like, if you want to do an homage to the 10's and stuff, like...
honestly, like... you know, that's a really tough question, because a lot of what makes up the 10's and music is extremely simple and memorable melody.
Yeah.
And repetitive lyrics and repetitive chord structures, which ends up with kind of simple song structure.
Right.
But like that's because that's not the part of the music that we're currently focused on. We're much more interested in what are the sounds you're actually using to make these noises.
Sure.
How often do you change those? How frequently do you vary the different areas of the sound spectrum that you're using? You know, like a lot of times a song will start and it'll just be a singer singing, and it'll just be a synth playing chords, and then the drums will come in, and all of a sudden it like picks up pace, and
it just completely changes on itself.
Changes, and then you know the first time you hear the chorus, you know it might be like, oh, that was kind of catchy, and then the second time you hear it, it's got a lot of energy and it's really bumping, you know, and like, so we spend a lot more time figuring out, okay, how can we take this idea and just change the sounds that make that happen,
right,
to make it feel, without the music actually being different.
Yeah.
And that's where you get textural change and tone color, and all of these things are more important now, because as we come out of the Romantic period, like I was saying, and come into
modern music,
the modern era, we actually started becoming less obsessed with like accidentals and ugly music, and becoming more obsessed with dynamic control and like varying instruments that like allowed speed to change, and then all of a sudden you get jazz music and rock music and blues and folk music, and all of these things start kind of coming together, and the advent of recording has now allowed it to where even the recording itself can be a musical instrument, and we sample it in hip-hop. Like, all of those things come together in such a way that they really show off variety and texture more than anything else in my mind. And so, if I had to say somebody is going to be like kind of like a definitive sound you can go to, it is going to be people like Marshmello and Selena Gomez and, you know, Drake right now, and Childish Gambino and you know, I can't think of his name right now, Kendrick Lamar and Chance the Rapper, like all of these people who are like kind of, you know, I would say popular, not necessarily always on the radio.
Sure, yeah, but people that make note every time they release something.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Like, I think those are the type of people who will really be remembered for the 2000s, because it'll be the 2010s, because for the first time ever, I can become a pop star from my bedroom.
Sure.
And so, like, it's crazy, dude. It's really hard. It's going to be really hard to understand what people remember this generation like, this decade like, music.
On another note, I've been watching lots of TV this week.
Oh yeah,
so much TV, it's silly.
I've missed it.
But I've caught up on the past few weeks. I've talked about like Castle Rock, which is still going on, and I've talked about what is it? It's Sharp Objects.
Oh yeah.
But I watched a new one this week. I've been told by everyone all the time to like. Have you seen, especially when I did Coen Brothers films and stuff like that on things and stuff, they're like, have you seen Fargo the show? Have you seen Fargo the show? And honestly, like, it was one of those things with me, I was just like, I don't know if I want to watch Fargo the show. I feel like it's a lot of people are telling me this, and normally when a billion people tell me to watch something, I refuse to watch it until later. Right. I just don't want to do that.
That's why it took me until season 4 of Game of Thrones to start it.
Yeah. So, but I've been watching Fargo. I watched the first episode last night. I haven't watched any more of it. It was like the last thing on my plate of all the TV that I needed to watch and catch up for the week.
Yeah.
But it was so good. Like, I was so surprised for a pilot, because normally pilots are shit.
Yeah,
like, pilot of Sharp Objects was shit. Pilot of Castle Rocks didn't really hook you and stuff like that. You had to get, like, more. You always tell people that. You're like, we'll get, like, 3 episodes in, and then it's, like, hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. But, yeah, like, I watched it, and it had so many, like, big names in it that I was flabbergasted. Like, Martin Freeman was in it. He was the main character.
Of course.
Billy Bob Thornton was an assassin in it. That's awesome. I was like, just to get that alone was ridiculous. But then Colin Hanks shows up, and like all these other people show up, and I'm just like, wow. And the thing that enthralled me was it felt like in an hour of watching that movie, I had watched a whole movie, and then it ended. Like, it could have just ended there, and it would have just been just as fine. Like, didn't leave you on any cliffhangers. It didn't say, like, you wanted to watch more because you wanted to see what else would happen.
Yeah. Because
you knew there was more. But if you were just to get that as itself, you'd be like, well, that was a complete, from first to last, like, beginning and end, all wrapped up in a nice little package as a pilot, and you're like, that was wonderful.
Fargo.
I haven't seen anything like it since probably, like, the first time I watched Black Mirror.
Okay.
Where it just like started and then ended all in an episode, and you're just like, wow, that was satisfying.
Interesting. And so, like, have you watched more than one episode, or did you just watch the pilot?
No, I started watching the second one last night, but then I got kind of tired and I went to bed. But the second one, I think the thing, if I'm going to make, and then there's 2 seasons, and there's plenty of people out there that have probably watched this more than I have. So this is just my projection as someone who hasn't watched anything but the pilot. I think each episode is supposed to be a different story. Cool. It's just things that happen in this area of Fargo, which is based off of the Coen brothers films.
Interesting, because that was going to be my next question. It was like whether or not it followed the film story, or if it was like just in that same kind of like world.
Yeah.
And in the same setting. But that sounds really interesting.
But the other thing that I think, more importantly, the thing that I think you would like, not necessarily in Fargo, but in Castle Rock. I'm going to talk about it one more time. But you, I noticed, have had like, on ThoughCraft and stuff like that, you've talked about Stephen King and It and stuff like that. So Castle Rock, the more and more that I watch it, the more and more that I realize that it is all based on characters by Stephen King.
Okay.
But it's a world where all of Stephen King's stories are connected.
Really? Okay.
So like you kind of get little hints to it, because obviously it takes place in Castle Rock. You see Shawshank Prison, so you got the Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
But in another episode, you silently hear you're talking to like a side character. One of the main characters talking to a side character, and she talks about how there was a killer dog in that area, which is Cujo.
Right.
And then she's talking about her uncle, who she stole his last name because she wants to be a writer. And he was a writer, and he took his family off to Colorado and wound up going crazy and killing with an axe. So you've got The Shining.
Amazing.
The other thing that I think is interesting about Castle Rock is there's allegedly going to tie in It with it. They're going to tie in The Body, which if you've ever watched the movie Stand By Me, that's what that's based off of.
Okay.
Is The Body. And so it's this town where just horrible things happen. And like he's mentioned, like Castle Rock as a town in Maine has been mentioned by Stephen King in about 8 different things.
Yeah.
The Shining is not one of them. So now there's 9 different connections to Castle Rock.
That's radical.
In the Stephen King universe that we're going to get little bits and pieces of the entire time. So if you're a big Stephen King fan and you want to watch something where you go, man, it'd be really interesting if Pennywise and Cujo and The Shining were all connected outside of just coming from the mind of one particular man, this might be the show for you. And it gets updated every week on Hulu. And so there's a new episode every week. That's the
one that's episodic, but it's on streaming services.
Yeah.
Totally fantastic.
But there's 6 episodes right now as I'm talking, and it's really, really good. Chloe actually was just like, I didn't really know how I felt about it at first. She's like, and you dragged me through watching a couple of them, and then like last night she's watching, and she's like, holy shit, this show is amazing.
Right.
Like,
I'm definitely gonna have to check it out.
Yeah.
I have been so like not watching TV shows. I've been going to bed at like 9:30 every night and waking up at like 5 in the morning.
Right.
And like just pretty much working on whatever I want to work on that day, and just like trying to keep myself busy. Or I've been playing shitloads of No Man's Sky.
Right, yeah, because it just got its update and stuff like that.
Yeah, I went from like 5 hours to 30 hours this last weekend.
Damn.
Yeah. It's so much fun. But, yeah, man, like, I still have to watch Atlanta.
Yeah, that's another really good one.
I've only watched a couple seasons of Breaking Bad.
I could care less about that one.
I haven't watched the second season of Westworld at all.
Oh, yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And I just feel like I'm lost. I have no TV shows that I like latch onto. The only thing I actually really watch is Game Grumps, and that's just because it's short.
And it's on YouTube.
That's important.
Yeah, I've been just diving into a shitload of them because I've been in a vacuum. I haven't found anything recently that I've just been super excited about.
Yeah.
And like Castle Rock has been one of those ones that I've just been like, man, I gotta watch more of this. I do agree with Chloe that the main character in it seems a little bit one-dimensional right now, but I think that's kind of the writing style, is to make him one-dimensional, and then you'll find out a bunch of different things about him.
Yeah.
But Bill Skarsgård's in it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Pennywise, and I'm wondering if he also will reprise his role as Pennywise in
so
the show.
crazy.
But I doubt it. I think he plays something different. So
that was actually something that I think is really interesting. It's kind of like something to bounce off of. Is so like there's this character, right? Like that we normally see as like the protagonist, and we always have this vision of this character who goes on some sort of emotional journey, and like they change in some way by the end of the film. Have you ever seen the movie Paddington?
Like the bear one?
Yeah, with the bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you noticed how like his character is the same the entire time?
Yeah, he just loves marmalade sandwiches.
Yeah, he's just super happy and just wants everyone else to be. Yeah. But that character doesn't seem, he's not a bad character. Like and those movies are really entertaining.
But he's a kid's book.
Yeah. But here's what's interesting though, is if you look at all of the other characters around him, they all have to go from being annoyed. They all go through character arcs and changes around characters. And so I wonder if maybe taking from that concept of a static main character, if maybe this character is going to be the like kind of precipice for which all of the other characters you're familiar with around him have to go through their own like development and changes.
I think in Paddington, it's almost a weird little commentary on like, because he goes to Great Britain.
Yeah.
Like, that's where he's, like, his uncle or something like that met a British guy and then, like, introduced marmalade. That's where marmalade's at. In Paddington, he is the trope of the ignorant, like, foreigner that goes through and it just, like, it's kind of like Sacha Baron Cohen's character in Borat.
Totally.
Where he's the ignorant foreigner and everyone else has to change or manipulate around to his particular manner. Because he's just innocent. Like, he's an innocent idiot.
Yeah.
And especially with, like, Paddington Bear, you have him going to, quote-unquote, one of the stereotypical most stuffy groups of people in the world. Nothing against you, great British people and stuff like that, but allegedly you're considered pretty, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Outside of stuffy, you're pretty rigorous and traditional, I guess, is what everyone kind of looks for. Yeah, like you don't bend or move from any other groups of people. You expect them to bend to the British will, kind of thing. Yeah. And to have a bear that's raised in the forest, that doesn't know what it's like to live in a city or know what a sink is and stuff like that. It's the lovable dork.
It's totally. Yeah, well, I don't know. That was just something I had actually watched a video on, was static characters.
Yeah.
And that was one of the few movies that I could actually think about that actually I was like, oh yeah, that's a movie where that happens.
Yeah. It's like how Winnie the Pooh never changes.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Well, that's Winnie the Pooh, dude.
He's a lovable. He loves honey.
How do you feel about that Winnie the Pooh live action movie?
I think that it looks like it's going to be the perfect horror film.
Right? It looks so terrifying.
I think, for me, it's a matter of. It looks like Christopher Robin is going psychotic. Right. And all of his animals from his youth are starting to like slowly like show his like multiple personality, and schizophrenia is actually like developing. And I think it could be made into a wonderful horror film. It's not going to be because it's Disney, but I think that there will be that stigma with it for a very, very long time.
I'm now never going to be able to unthink of Christopher Kenobi now, though.
Yeah.
Like that's just stuck in my mind.
The General Grievous, like.
Well, no, because like it's Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
And he's Christopher Robin.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, he gave up on Winnie the Pooh because he got freaking lightsaber toys, dude.
There was a meme that I saw this last week of actually Winnie the Pooh, and like it was Christopher. He's like, Christopher Robin turns around, and then Winnie the Pooh just has 4 arms like General Grievous, and he just goes, General Kenobi. It's just this, like,
rad.
General Grievous had just hunted him down through the stars and made himself like a bear.
That's hilarious.
So, like,
Well, what's next? Do we want to...
honestly, I think we should talk about next week. We're going to either have a guest on the show, or we're going to do another one of the captain's logs.
Mm-hmm.
If we do wind up doing one of the captain's logs, we talked about this earlier, and we're going to do our top 3 cartoons.
Top 3 cartoons.
So join us whenever that, either next week or the week after, for our top 3 cartoons. Welcome to our special series of Waking the Kraken, where we have interviews with people and our cartoons and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
yeah.
We're all sorts of new things going on.
Yeah.
And the channel's going to be growing more and more. We got a lot more things we're going to be doing.
Absolutely.
So keep
Super
looking out.
Fight.
Oh, yeah, we got to do Super Fight.
I had nobody talk to me about this week.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
But I'm pretty sure that I'm going to eliminate that damn evil doll.
Right.
Because how can, just aesthetically, how can it go up against, it could probably go up against 3 Alexes, let's be honest.
It's an evil doll. I'm not that.
3 Alexes. But the ones that I'm going with is, it could probably go up against the Illuminati as well. It's an evil doll. But we're talking about evil dolls, and we're talking about evil dolls in a manner of how I only understand them, which is most of the time, because of what's haunting Wes and Nate and all the things that I watch in that, they're demonic.
Yes.
So how is an evil doll going to beat another demon?
It's not.
And that's really where I was like, it doesn't matter if it's armed with ghost pepper spray or if there's a skunk on a stick and stuff like that. Literally, the key to our battle royale right here was that the demon kicked the evil doll's ass.
Beautiful.
So-
And we finally did it.
And it's finally gone.
He's dead. That's like 5 or 6 episodes of that same thing. I mean, we kind of didn't do Super Fight for a while.
We didn't, I mean, like, but that was, I think, like, about, from the blog and stuff like that, I think it was about 4 of the episodes, And so we got to find, do we want, I guess, on our next fight, I feel like it's going to be a little bit unfettered, because obviously we've established that the demon is the keystone to this.
Yeah, I would say that honestly, these guys, since they couldn't beat the doll, are gone.
So we got the demon armed with pepper spray.
Yes.
And who are we going to have him go up against?
All right, you pick the person.
I'll pick the person. I can't tell you how many times on the Bad Form podcast that I picked from the wrong side.
It's all right.
That we've actually, like, I've actually just said, you throw me the idol, I throw you the whip. Like, I've used too many, like, Indiana Jones lines. So, I have a pet rock.
Pet rock. Armed with a super glue fire hose.
All right.
No,
Like
that's not going
not good
anywhere.
enough. Yeah, this is not good enough. We
A
gotta
pet
give it
rock
better.
can't do anything.
Pet rocks are stupid.
Let's try this again.
All right, this is a better competitor.
Okay.
A demon armed with ghost pepper spray against Genghis Khan.
Who can control plants?
I love it. That's a better match.
That's a good fight
That is
right
a
there.
better match.
Ghost pepper spray is technically a plant still.
True, yeah, and it's Genghis Khan who had the largest empire, like connected empire in all of the world.
He also had short bows on horsebacks.
Yeah, Cossacks.
Cossacks. I always forget that word.
So, honestly, really, guys, please help us pick this out. If you don't, we're just gonna stop doing it because obviously we get it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we think it's fun, but
we think it's fun, but if you don't like it, we'll just stop it. So comment if you want to keep this going on. Don't if you don't. So,
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, we'll figure out something new for you.
Yeah.
Guys, have a good one.
Okay, goodbye.
All right, welcome to Kraken Bowl. We start.